Greetings to all true boxing enthusiasts. Last night, I had the chance to watch the exciting fight between the formidable Agit Kabayel and the truly huge Damian Knyba from Poland live. And I want to share my impressions with you, as well as analyze the bout technically, what exactly was happening in the ring. And we'll draw some interesting conclusions from it. In particular, according to WBC rules, Agit Kabayel is now the mandatory challenger, or rather, he should become the mandatory challenger to fight Usyk. Because Agit Kabayel is actually the interim WBC champion, he defended his title, and since the main champion is Usyk, in theory, this fight, we could have seen it happen. And in this video, in the second half, I want to reflect on this. Usyk versus Kabayel. What are Agit Kabayel's real chances of winning, and does he have any at all? Now, to understand exactly what happened in the ring, we need some background anyway. Who is Agit Kabayel and how does he fight? Who is Damian Knyba, the very tall guy? What kind of boxing does he show? We discussed all of this in detail on the private channel. As for Kabayel, everything is clear. Personally, I really like him as an athlete. Not his boxing, not his technique, not his effectiveness, but the fact that he follows his own path. So you see, guys, if you're a boxing fan or if you box yourself, if you coach, then you know very well that boxing is broad. There is classical boxing technique. In boxing, well, it's basically a real science. Boxing technique is complex. It's allowed and any technical action, move or punch is permitted. For some reason, it might work out really well for you in particular. For example, someone throws a jab, Crawford throws jabs so well that people go down. Someone else throws straight punches, someone else can't do any of that, but he goes into close combat, up close, like in a phone booth. So Agit Kabayel has his own specialization. He specializes in body shots. They're not particularly powerful. He hits like an average fighter. By the way, Agit's punching power, I would rate it as pretty average in terms of how much body weight he puts into his punches. He does have some power. His hands are fairly quick, but you can't really say that he hits with knockout force. Yes, you see, he targets the body. He goes to the body from different angles. Straight shots there, hooks. Between the elbows, around the elbows. And I'm talking about his previous fights. And these body shots, they have a cumulative effect. So if a person has a good chin, can really take a punch to the head, he can take 1, 2, 3 shots and nothing happens to him. But with body shots, they sort of add up. One shot in one round, another shot in the next. 3 or 4 and they accumulate. And we were witnesses to this when Kung Fu Panda really wore down Jalei. When it was Flash Sanchez, the Cuban. When it was Arsenbek Makhmudov as well. All of them, and these are very serious athletes, all of them. Agit Kabayel didn't just beat them, he beat them before the final bell. Just think about that. All thanks to body shots. That's really impressive. Kabayel is also very smart in the ring, but we'll talk about that later. Now, Damian Knyba, a huge Pole from Poland, his height, he's over 2 meters tall, and his reach, what's called reach, is unique. I think it's exactly 2 meters and 18 centimeters. Just think about that reach, how much that is. There's no one else like that. That is Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Who else is tall? All of them. Vladimir Klitschko, the Klitschko brothers. They all had a shorter reach than Damian Knyba. Technically, Knyba. He has a very serious drawback, meaning he lacks precise technique, a stopping punch. In other words, he's tall. But the Klitschko brothers, for example, used to be tall. They were pioneers among tall fighters in modern boxing. Everyone says it's just the jab, but that's not quite true. In fact, it's not just the jab. They had a very well-developed stopping punch. Even their jab was so strong that it would make people's heads snap back. His jab is stronger than that of some undisputed champions. In fact, all of their punches are powerful. The rest of their arsenal, the right hand, for example, is a stopping punch. Everything is very precise, powerful, with weight behind it. A knockout punch. So it turns out that even if you can't outbox a more agile opponent, and I'm talking about the brothers here, Klitschko, if you can't keep up with the pace they're forcing on you, well, you just won't be able to handle it. Yes, there's the punch, the clinch, but you still won't withstand it. In other words, the power of the punch immediately gives you a lot. It stops you in your tracks. First of all, his jab pecks at you. His jab is the real deal. It breaks through. He really uses it to push you back and sting you. And then there's the right hand, like a bomb. So it's jab, 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 jab. Then bam, the right hand comes in. And that could mean a knockout or a knockdown. But Knyb doesn't have any of that. So it looks like he throws punches, he throws a lot, but his jab, sometimes he pushes, sometimes he just tosses it out, but there's no punch that's really sharp or powerful. In short, he doesn't have a proper well-set punch, right? It kind of breaks through, sometimes from below. So what were the thoughts before the fight, given all this? It was obvious that Kabayel would immediately go forward against him. There was no other option. Because Kabayel is shorter, and trying to box with someone with such long arms would only work against him. It would be a disadvantage for him and an advantage for the guy with long arms. And Kabayel is very smart. He always has a different game plan for each fight. He boxes differently with different opponents. Against Arslanbek Makhmudov, Kabayel kept feinting and moving back, even though Arslanbek is taller. So at first he moved around, threw some feints and retreated. Only after that did he start working the body. With someone like Agron Smakici, for example, Kabayel went forward. Body, 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 body. Same thing with Kung Fu Panda, so it's different boxing styles. So here it was clear that Agit Kabayel would immediately charge forward. There was simply no other option. And of course he would bombard the body, because it's convenient for a taller guy to hit the body. So what did we actually see in reality? Agit Kabayel tried to go forward. This is the first round starting, right? But Knyba, he just started firing like a machine gun. So he was doing everything right, moving in circles, and he kept throwing the left, left, left. It's not just that he was throwing a jab. He was constantly always throwing his right hand in there too. Sometimes he threw the right or came over the top with it from the right side. Or on the contrary, he would throw uppercuts from below. He was lifting them up. And the funniest thing is he was landing them. And I think Damian won the first round. Knyba. And by the way, something similar happened in the second round. So the second round as well. I think overall it might even have gone to Knyba. I don't know what the judges scored, but there were problems for Agit Kabayel. Yes, there were some moments, but he completely lost the first round and took some really hard shots himself. The second round was better, and there was a certain change. But still, it was Knyba who was landing shots. And it turns out he's tall. Fortunately, he doesn't have a well-developed punch. Guys, when I say well-developed, I mean at the highest level, you understand? At a championship level. I mean by the highest standards. I'm saying he doesn't have a well-developed punch. Basically. And obviously it's harder for him because when you're a giant, 2 meters tall, your coordination is worse. That's clear, no one argues with that. But one way or another, the fact is Knyba can't stop someone with his punch. And what happened next in the end? The thing is, Kabayel takes a lot of punches, but he endures all of it. Kabayel comes forward and he worked not just to the body, he did work the body too, but he worked more, mainly to the head, Kabayel. A lot of punches to the head, and starting from the second round, Agit Kabayel made some adjustments. That is, if in the first round he moved straight forward and took a lot of shots to the head, then starting from the second round, and maybe even more so in the third, he started working the body as well. He started moving his head and not just dodging punches in a straightforward way. He would slip a punch, you might not even have time to react, and overall he just seemed to relax, adding more fluidity to his movements. Because in general, when your head is a moving target, especially against a tall opponent who's throwing bombs at you, it's just better for your defense. And Agit started doing that, and he's great for it, because he's smart, you can see that. Yeah, so he adjusted after the first round. But what surprised me, and now we're moving on to the third round, is that I thought Kabayel would work the body a lot more. But mostly, he was actually aiming for the head, strangely enough. And that's really interesting. At first I wondered why, because as it turned out, Knyba protects his body quite well. He doesn't just put his elbows up to guard his body. But what does he actually do? He drops his lead hand a bit, and it turns out he does this little shoulder move. I hadn't really noticed that before. He covers up with his right hand and elbow in the usual way, but with his left, he doesn't just use his elbow, he covers with his whole arm. So basically, the point is that his body is protected. His body is in a shell. Of course, there are still gaps. For people who defend like that, you need to hit them right here in the heart. They can't cover this area with their shoulder roll. Often, they themselves don't even know how to defend against punches there, and they'll start to, but one way or another, it's hard to break through to the body. But the head, that's left open, and Kabayel kept landing shots to the head, hitting him once, then again. And it was already clear that at some point, Knyba's legs started to wobble a bit. He staggered just slightly. And Kabayel went after him. He kept throwing punches to finish him off. He missed a lot of shots, but some of them landed. And then there was a very interesting stoppage. So Kabayel lands a shot, and you can see that Knyba doesn't like it, that for a split second he loses his bearings, that he's shaken. But after that, he actually comes to his senses. He tries to run away from Kabayel, meaning he moves away. He's conscious, he sees everything. His gaze is focused, even though he doesn't respond, but he tries to escape. And at that moment, the referee jumps in and says, "That's it. You lost? So was that stoppage fair or not?" At the moment when I was watching, it seemed to me that the stoppage was unfair. It seemed to me that the referee favored Agit Kabayel, because here's the thing, Kabayel was also operating at his limit. I mean, yes, he's winning, yes, he really is. In the third round, he started to really beat up the guy, that's true, but he was also just hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. So he himself was kind of on the edge too. I mean, he was also working at a high pace. It's not a given that he'd be able to keep going like that. And Knyba, for example, by the way, Knyba is very resilient. Even though he's not really a technical fighter, he can keep going. If you don't take him out, he can keep pecking away, constantly throwing his hands. Sure, his punches aren't super powerful, but he'll keep throwing them for all 12 rounds. It's still not clear who would win. And it seemed to me that the referee acted too quickly. Then this morning, when I rewatched the fight, guys, it's ambiguous. I mean, let's put it this way. Knyba really was shaken up before that. Not in the last 2 seconds, but before that, he was already stunned. And the referee was watching, waiting for the right moment, whether to stop it or not. And then there was a hit, bam, a real solid shot. He flinched, he was stunned again. And the referee ran in as if to stop it, but in reality, Knyba got up and was fine. He was actually quite conscious. So it was a pretty controversial stoppage. Honestly, they should have waited a bit longer. What if Kabayel hadn't managed to finish him off? By the way, there wasn't much time left. There were only a few seconds until the bell. Well, it was fine, there was still time to finish him off, but he might not have managed to. And then he got tired, that's it, he was exhausted, spent all his energy, maybe even overdid it. He tried to finish him, but couldn't, got tired, and who knows how it would have ended. So in short, the stoppage was controversial. To accuse the referee of completely favoring him, I don't know, that's not entirely true either. I mean, Knyba was shaken, he really was shaken. And maybe they saved him because if someone gets knocked out, that's it, they're knocked out. Later, when you see the aftermath, what's the point of that? So maybe for his health, it's not that terrible, but for his boxing career, the road is already closed. Everyone will know you've been knocked out. So maybe, on the contrary, you should thank the referee. The thing is, in general, he preserved the boxer for future matches. Not just his health, maybe, but on the other hand, it all looked as if the referee decided to play along, basically to reduce the risks. You know, like, if I can stop it, I will. That's it, the local guy won. Everyone's happy. Next, pay attention to how much the crowd was celebrating, and also notice what the seating arrangement was like in the arena. So it was a small arena, well, small, about 10,000 seats, I think. Some unknown city. After all, Germany has big cities, Berlin, the capital, and some others. The city, I read about it on Boxrec, I didn't even understand the name. I read it, something like Bru 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 in German. I don't know it, like what kind of city is that? But the stadium was completely packed. So those 10,000 seats, every single one was taken. It was like an anthill in there. And the energy was incredible. They were loudly shouting, yeah, indeed, like rhythmically chanting Agit, you know. Agit Kabayel, first of all, he's Kurdish. Maybe he's also somehow from Turkey. And maybe the diaspora came out to support him. So guys who are Kurds, Turks, came to cheer for their own. But overall, the vibe was that Germans really missed boxing. I mean, before they had the Klitschko brothers, They used to have their own boxers like Marco Huck and others. And you can really see that it's not the case. There's no decline of interest in boxing in Germany. The interest in boxing is just huge. And if there is any decline, it's just in the number of boxers. And now that they have a boxer again, a German again, they're just going wild over there. They're making a huge noise. They really love it. Now, about Usyk, look, here's the thing. There are 3 ways to beat Usyk. Well, like with any boxer, there are no unbeatable boxers. So who is Usyk anyway? What kind of boxer is he? Well, obviously, if you're a Usyk fan, you're like, Usyk, he's like Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali, and also George Foreman and Lennox Lewis. He's just, everything about him is the best, especially his punch. Just so you know, that was sarcasm. But I'm not a fan of Usyk, but Usyk deserves respect. You have to respect a person's achievements. His achievements are tremendous. That's a fact, whether you like it or not. Usyk is the undisputed champion. He beat everyone. That's a physical fact. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. How did he do it? First of all, he's a sensitive boxer, meaning he's not that big in terms of size, but he's very sensitive, well, like an Olympian. Secondly, guys, the fact that he has a strong character goes without saying. I'm looking purely at Usyk's physical qualities, his character. Yes, maybe even the secret is partly in his character and also in his religiosity. By the way, that's actually quite likely, but also in the judging, by the way, in the sense that he doesn't get what he deserves. But physically, Usyk, first of all, he's sensitive, meaning his technique. He's a kind of playmaker. And secondly, he takes punches pretty well. And thirdly, and most importantly, really the most important thing, Usyk has incredible endurance. For some reason, no one talks about this. Everyone keeps quiet about it. They say Usyk is such a technician, so sensitive. Yeah, any sensitive guy like that would get knocked out like a bowling pin. But Usyk has incredible work rate and stamina in the ring. So if his technique isn't working, just look at his fight with that. Back when he wasn't in the heavyweight division yet, what was his name again? Anyway, he fought a Brit, a pretty tough one, Tony Bellew, yeah. Tony Bellew outboxed him, but Usyk simply outlasted him with his endurance. And basically, Usyk is like a spinning top. He moves back and forth, left and right, up and down, throws a 1-2, lands a jab, slips away with his body. You just can't keep up with him. The pace and rhythm are completely different, but there should be a problem with maintaining that pace and rhythm over time. You might be able to box like that for 3 rounds, Olympic-style boxing, or maybe if you've trained for 6 rounds, but to fight like that for 12 rounds, well, that's something unique. There just isn't anyone else like that. And that's where his strength lies. So how can you beat Usyk? First of all, you can knock him out with a single punch, but for that, you need to be a knockout artist. Among modern boxers, that's Deontay Wilder, but unfortunately, he's on the decline now. He's just not the same anymore. There's also Fabio Wardley, but he's a knockout artist, meaning he's the kind of guy who can be losing the whole fight. For example, Fabio Wardley was losing the entire fight to the Australian. I can't remember his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. Just recently, about a year ago, Fabio Wardley was completely losing. He was losing to Don and whoever else he fought to. I even forgot who it was, with Parker. I mean, there was a fight before Parker as well. He was losing that one too. 1 punch, knockout. That's the kind of guy he is, right? And the same thing can happen with Usyk. You can be losing to him. And then suddenly you land a shot and you win. So here's a question right away. Agit Kabayel. Does he have that kind of 1-punch power? No, I mean, Agit Kabayel, even though he's a knockout artist, all his knockouts come from accumulated damage. By the way, Kabayel is very smart. The fact that he kept hitting Knyba in the head a lot, and not the body, besides Knyba having good defense, I assume Kabayel was informed. That is, most likely there was some information that Knyba's chin was average, although he has never been knocked down, even in the professional ring, or at least I couldn't find any record of it. But maybe Kabayel knew that his chin was just average. So maybe there was some kind of information about that. Anyway, he's smart. So what I'm getting at with all this is that he could win with a single punch, like he was losing, then bam, he lands one. Like Fabio Wardley, like Deontay Wilder, even like Anthony Joshua. But only Anthony Joshua. He doesn't have a strong straight punch. When he landed, it was useless, an unprepared punch at the highest level. Joshua can land not with an uppercut or a hook, but with a single punch. But Agit Kabayel doesn't have that option. It's just not there for him. The next way to beat Usyk is to outbox him on points. Basically, just be better. That is, be just as sharp or even sharper. Some can do this thanks to their height, trying to keep him at bay with the jab. In short, some do it with tempo, with agility, something like that. But can Agit Kabayel actually outbox Usyk on points? Just surpass him, be better at boxing, more of a ring general, more sensitive? Well, what do you think? Well, I don't think so. Again, Usyk is now, he's almost 40, right? And it's clear that at some point he could suddenly start to decline. Or he could get injured or something. Anything could happen, right? So that's understandable, yeah. But basically, if Usyk is in good shape, then no. Come on, guys, are you kidding? You mean outboxing Usyk on points at that high pace, in that tempo? Who's going to outwork whom? Yeah, that's just not an option at all. So here, Agit, I don't see him as the winner. And the third way, in theory, that you could beat Usyk, and the question is, can he do it? Agit Kabayel, is to break him. That is to go forward, to create an accumulative effect, to hit him, in short, just overwhelm him. Boxing examples, for instance, like that guy who's mean as a dog. What's his name again? He threw punches over the top, fought Mayweather, a really great boxer, Marcos Maidana, who I really like, yeah? He can't knock out Mayweather with a single punch. He just doesn't have it. It won't work. That's not Maidana's style. He can't outscore him on points either. It's just not his thing. He tried to break him down, and Marcos Maidana really did try to break Mayweather, and he almost succeeded, but almost doesn't count. He still didn't manage to do it. So Agit Kabayel might try to do something similar. Can he do that to Usyk? Breaking a guy like that is a really tough task. In principle, it's extremely hard because Usyk is quite mobile. He's such a nimble, technical fighter, and he's very durable, you know? Usyk has incredible stamina. He'll keep circling, moving left and right, throwing his shots. So breaking him down like that is very, very difficult. So basically, you could be losing the whole fight and then just catch him with a big shot at the end. That's something that could still happen. But for Agit Kabayel, that's pretty much out of reach, to be honest. But to break him down, I don't know. What are the chances? For Agit Kabayel, there's an interesting combination here as well. The thing is, Usyk doesn't like body shots. And not just below the belt, but also shots right on the belt line or just above it. We all know that Usyk has had moments throughout his long career, including in Olympic boxing, where he pretended he was being hit on the belt or below the belt. So the punch was solid, right on the edge. Sometimes you can even see it clearly in the slow motion replay. By the way, you can mention such fights in the comments. There have just been so many of them. I even get confused about which one is which. But there really were times when he was hit below the belt. I won't argue with that. Or on the belt, which is forbidden, I agree. For example, that Dubois bomb in the first fight, I think it was a bit low. But Usyk does have a tendency, even with normal legitimate punches, he really doesn't like body shots. Well, it seems to be some kind of feature, maybe physiology, psychology, neurology. Every person is unique, everyone has their own thing. And Usyk has this trait, so it's not just when he's hit below the belt or on the belt, which is obviously forbidden, but when he's hit somewhere in the guts, it's the same story. He doesn't like that either. Maybe he had some kind of injury in the past. It's a very complex pain. It's really multifaceted. Some people even experience phantom pain. It's very individual. And that's why Dubois specializes in body shots, which makes this fight interesting. Guys, if you asked me, who do you think will win, Kabayel or Usyk? First of all, we still have to wait for the fight. Secondly, I post my detailed fight predictions in a private channel. It's a paid channel, but actually all my main content is there. That's exactly where I upload it. Guys, I invite you to subscribe there. Any cards from any country in the world are accepted there with automatic conversion. In dollars or whatever you want. Even those African gold coins or whatever you prefer. There's automatic recalculation. The subscription works from any country. And of course, that's where I always upload my content. Final predictions, detailed ones. But if you want my quick preliminary take, I'm leaning towards Agit Kabayel. I don't see much chance for a win. I mean, I think he might just land a lucky punch or something. I'm not saying he definitely will. Wilder, honestly, I see even fewer chances for Wilder, especially right now. He's on the decline at the moment. Right now, he's just not himself. Again, take Fabio Wardley, for example. I mean, it's clear that they're going to lose on points by a wide margin, but one punch can change everything. Maybe, it doesn't mean it definitely will happen, but there is a chance. There are some chances. Maybe they're small, but they exist. They're real too. But as for body shots, like Tanash throwing a bunch, Usyk is very mobile, so I think it's unlikely. And endurance, who has more? I think the endurance is greater. Usyk's. He'll just outwork him. In fact, if I had to guess, I think Usyk actually has a good chance to win before the final bell. There's a good chance that Usyk will win early, not by decision. Although it sounds a bit unusual, that's honestly what I think. Well, again, let's wait and see. First, we need to see the fight. Guys, those are my thoughts. All the best to everyone. Share your thoughts on the private channel. Subscribe, it's content for you and a paycheck for me. See you next time, turning off the camera.